Uh-oh, hold on. Forgot to mess with this. All right, sorry, I'm rolling in last minute here. Give me just a second. I forgot to post that I was starting to my socials. So let me just do that super quick. It's been a busy morning, so we'll get rolling here in a second though. Starting now. All right, stream. All right. Okay, sorry about that. Good morning, everybody. Welcome, or I guess it's afternoon, technically speaking, here in the Central Time Zone. Hope you all are having a good day today. And so today, what we're going to be doing is we are going to be setting up the developer tools on a MacBook. So just for context, I got myself a new MacBook Pro this week. This is the new M5 MacBook Pro 14 inch. And just for context, so like why I got this machine. So I typically upgrade my laptop every 4 years. So it has been 4 years now since I purchased my M1 MacBook Pro, which I am currently streaming from right now. This will be its swan song, if you will. Once this stream is done, I'm gonna wipe it. Now that I'll have this one set up and then prepare it for sale. And so yeah, it is the. So I'm actually downgrading. Downgrading in the sense of the screen. I do have a 16-inch MacBook Pro personally right now. About a couple years ago, my job gave me. They were refreshing my work laptop, and they gave me, instead of a 16-inch, they were out of those, and they gave me a 14-inch. And I was transparently a little bit irritated when that happened. However, I've really grown to love this size. And if you recall, prior to the 14 inchers coming out, this smaller form factor size was a 13 inch. And so I found the 13 inch just to be a little bit too small for a laptop. So I was opting for what was the larger size, the 15 inch at that time. Now it is 16 inch for the screen real estate. But the 14 inch is like a really sweet spot in terms of the screen size versus the device size. Like, because I like to walk around and stuff, and like if I'm walking from my office here upstairs, I like to carry it one hand. Trying to do that with the 16 inch was just not, super conducive. Plus, there's just the whole fact of like whenever you have like one of those larger laptops, you need to have a stronger battery brick for that, or I'm sorry, a power brick for that. And so those are expensive, especially for the 16-inch MacBooks. And so a lot of the chargers in my house could not support the 16-incher, but they can support the 14-incher just fine. Plus, this comes with the new M5 chip in it. So I've been trying to do a lot more branching out in my development more recently. So AI is still my bread and butter, but I have been wanting to branch out more into web development and app development, and things like Xcode for app development. They were slowing down on my M1 MacBook there. So and even things like doing the option space keyboard thing for invoking ChatGPT, it was like a little bit of a delay there. But on this new machine, everything's super speedy, everything's super quick. So I just got this yesterday. The only thing I've installed on it so far is just basically non-developer tools. So things like my graphic design software, my streaming software. But I have not installed any developer tools on and that's just because I thought that it would be fun to do this as part of a stream today. So the way that we're going to be approaching the stream is we are actually going to be we're going to do it in an intentional order, and along the way I'm going to explain the various tools that we're going to be installing and why they're going to be installed. So this is very much like a beginner stream, if you will. So if you are a seasoned software engineer, I don't want to say you're not going to learn anything, but this is probably going to be a lot of recap for you here. So, and just to be clear, you don't necessarily have to have a MacBook. Now, you do have to have a product with Mac OS to follow along here today. So that could be an iMac, a Mac Mini, a MacBook Air, etc. It just can't be a Windows computer. It can't be a Linux computer. Just yeah. So let's go ahead and get started. So the way I don't think I'm going to have to restart this laptop at all, but that's why I'm not streaming directly from this laptop. Instead, what we're going to do is I'm going to use a capture card here to actually display it. So, actually, fun fact, that's what this here is. So this here This is referred to as the Genki Shadowcast. It's actually just a really, really small device. This is really the only component here to it. What this is as you can see, this is an HDMI male port here with a female USB-C port on the other side here. And basically all you have to do is plug this thing into an HDMI port, plug it into the USB-C stick here, and then Genki has provided some software where you can stream things directly from whatever HDMI source is into the Mac. And so why I have this is, well, I don't have it here right now. Typically I have my Vision Pro that's sitting right here. So the Apple Vision Pro, it can connect to Macs, but it can't connect directly to like a game console. So so basically what I'm getting at is like, this is how I am able to play video games inside my Vision Pro, because I have a Mac Mini that's sitting over by my PlayStation 5 and my Nintendo Switch across the room over there. And so if I ever want to play something on my Vision Pro, all I got to do is connect the Vision Pro to the Mac Mini and plug this little guy into either the PlayStation 5 or the Nintendo Switch. So today we're going to be using it for this purpose here. So let me go ahead and share my screen. It's probably going to we're probably gonna have to mess with my camera again here. Okay, so you can probably still see me, but you can't see me. But give me a second, and I will fix that. All right, so there we go. It is fixed. All right, so now let's go ahead and open up the Genki or connect the Genki Shadowcast here. So again, it's just as simple as plugging it into the HDMI port here. All right, let me close this down first, real quick. Okay. All right, so now it is connected. All right, so let's go ahead and swipe over to this screen. Why is it not showing up? It should be showing up. All right, let's try this again. Don't tell me we're gonna have problems with this today. I hope not. All right, so let me try unplugging it and replugging it back in from here. Okay, is there something going on with my Mac here that it doesn't like to recognize this? Yes, let me go ahead and just try to reclose out of Genki here and reopen Genki and see if, so this is the software I was talking about here. Okay, now it does appear to be working. So let me go ahead and blow this back up. So what you are previewing now on the screen here is actually the MacBook that I am working on here. So what we are going to do is, I do have it in my reminders, we're going to be installing these list of tools in this order here. Yeah, so let's just go ahead and we'll get to these one by one here. So the very first thing that we want to do is I want to install iTerm 2. So what is iTerm 2? So iTerm 2 is a specialized version of like a terminal. And so actually by default, every single MacBook or any Apple product that runs macOS by default comes with the terminal. So let's go ahead and open up the terminal here. So you could see this is the basic default terminal. Nothing particularly fancy about it. It gets the job done. So so installing iTerm 2 here, this is really just more for partially aesthetics and partially like there are some extensions that we're going to install with this here to kind of to add some additional functionality, and you'll see that here in a second. But if you wanted to just use the terminal that is built into macOS by default, there's no problem with that. You can do that just fine if you'd like. That's up to you. I prefer to use iTerm 2, so I have not installed iTerm 2 yet. So that is, all right, so let's go ahead and open up Safari. And just a word of caution here. So on my MacBook that I'm streaming from right now, the one that I'm about to get rid of, I have installed the beta version of macOS 6 26.1. I have so many problems with Safari crashing on it, so do not upgrade to this beta. I don't know what's going on with this beta. It's funky. So this new MacBook is just the standard macOS 26 release. So let's go ahead and go to iTerm 2. All right, so it is as simple as just going to the website and then downloading it. So nothing fancy here. I guess one thing I should note while we're going throughout here, so this is my personal machine, and your experience is largely probably going to be the same as mine, unless you are using a company machine, and that's just going to, and then your results are going to vary. So your company may have different sort of mandates on like how they want you to install things, whether that be going through a special installer or enabling special permissions. So those things you'll definitely need to be mindful of. The way I'm approaching it today is just like you would if I walked into the Apple store right now, bought this MacBook, or even a Best Buy or something like that, bought the MacBook off the shelf for my personal use. So this tutorial today is going to suffice for most people, but just want to give that quick call here. So it is downloaded. I'm going to go to my my downloads here, and I'm going to just drag this into my applications, and then looks like I had forgotten I installed Steam. So let's go ahead and open up iTerm. Now, by default, iTerm just comes with some very basic configuration. So you can see here, it actually doesn't look hardly different at all than the terminal. So I want to do a couple things. So very first thing is I want to make some updates to just some minor aesthetic things that you can do directly within iTerm 2, and then we're going to talk about something called Oh My Zsh in a little bit. But so just from for within iTerm 2, so if you go up to iTerm 2 on the top left there and you go down to settings, there's a bunch of different settings here. We're going to ignore most of these for the most part. The couple that I do want to hone in on, so if we go to appearance specifically, you can see that the theme is regular. I'm going to change that to compact, and what compact does is it essentially gets rid of this top bar to make it look like one seamless window. So again, just an aesthetic choice, no functionality and change in functionality there. And then I go over to here to terminal. Is it term profile? Or maybe, yeah. So yeah, profiles, and then I go to colors. So you can see here that it by default will like match whatever the theme of your computer is. So if you have it on light mode, it's going to be light mode. If I toggle on dark mode, I'm going to toggle on dark mode just to show, then it's going to go into dark mode. Now, I personally, so I'm one of these people that like the dynamic setting, meaning that like I like it light during the day, I like it dark during the night. However, with my coding tools in iTerm 2 specifically, I like it to be always dark mode. And so I'm going to toggle this back to light mode. And within the settings here, we can actually just simply go dark mode, colors presets. We're going to go to a dark background, update dark mode only. Let me see if that updated it. I forget how to do this part. Oh, wait, it looks like that changed something. All right, dark. All right, so yeah, dark, general. Did that mess up something else in here? I have a hard time remembering this because this is one of those things that's like you set it and forget it kind of thing. Like I never, like once I set this, I'm never going to touch it again probably. Color presets. Why does it keep wanting to do that? Foreground. Use separate colors for light mode, dark mode, color presets, dark background. Update both modes. Dark mode. Okay, for some reason it's still like what I was hoping it would do is it would turn this whole top bar black. Not really sure why it's not doing that right now. And it kind of doesn't matter. I want to keep moving on for the sake of time here. By the way, I am taking questions on LinkedIn or YouTube, so if you have any questions, feel free to drop those in the chat, and I'll get to those if I can, as I can. All right, so the only other thing I want to do here is with the text. Now, by default, this is the text size. Now, if you hold down the command button and then press either the plus or the minus key on your keyboard, you can dynamically change the font size. Now, I like to, by default, just have it start off with a little bit of larger font size because I'm getting old here. So you can see here within the text window of this profiles page, then we can just bump this up. I like to bump it up to 18. I'm gonna keep the font the same, and that's all I want to do here. Like you can actually go wild and go to your heart's content with doing the customization of the settings. But that is basically what I want to cover within the iTerm settings itself. So we can now check off iTerm. Boom, one thing done. All right, next up. So let's go on to our. Let's talk a little bit about what this .zhrc file here is. So as you can see, we are just. So we have this terminal open, and it has the ability to do or not do certain things. And that is really like the way that it knows, like, so basically like when you fire this thing up, you might be wondering, well, how does it know where Python's at? Or how does it know where these other things are at? And so behind the scenes, it's actually referencing two different files. In fact, let me go ahead and show those files, ls-a. You should be able to see them here. So you could see, oh, I don't even see the other one in here. So you can see the ZSHRC, and there's usually a ZSH profile in here. And so what those two are basically doing is, so when you log into your system as a user for the first time, it references the ZSHRC profile file. And then every time you open up like a new tab or a new interface for like your actual playing around in iTerm, or even both iTerm and Terminal are referencing the ZSHRC file. So like every time you open up a new session with one of those, then it references that file. So most people, including myself, just tend to prefer to mess with the ZSHRC file only, and they don't mess with it. Don't mess with the they don't mess with the ZSH profile. I just wanted you to be aware, because sometimes if you use so I'm going to show you how to install Python with UV specifically. However, if you go to like Python's actual website and try to download Python there, and you follow the installer is going to install some stuff to the ZSH profile file, which is not even present on this current machine right now. So hold on just a second. I want to make sure that there's nothing sensitive in here. So I'm just going to look here on my profile or my ZSHRC to make sure that there's nothing sensitive in here. Okay, I forgot that I did add LM Studio in here. All right, so let me go ahead and show it. So basically what I did here is I ran this command cat. I don't remember what cat stands for, but cat is basically a way within this terminal here that if you want to look at like what the contents of the file is, whether it be a Python file or whatever other file, then you can just simply see that in here. And so you can see here that there's really like hardly anything in here. So I did install LM Studio last night, which is not, I don't necessarily consider that a developer tool. And it looks like it did add one thing here. So you'll notice here, and I'm not an expert about this, but it is still something to be mindful of here. You'll notice where it says export path. Path is like all capital letters. That is basically telling our MacBook, okay, the path is basically like anytime you want to invoke something like Python or some other thing that we would here in the command line that we're going to install that doesn't come necessarily default as part of this thing. And I guess one thing, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. Something to be mindful of is that the reason that people like to develop on MacBooks is because Mac is built on top of the Linux operating system. And so all these commands that we're running here, like ls and cat and cd, cd stands for change directory, these are Linux commands. And so what we're doing is we're basically running, it's now obviously Mac OS is not Linux. It is Apple's proprietary thing. So yeah, we're running all these commands and such, and I lost my train of thought. but basically, like with this Linux, what Linux is doing behind the scenes, or Mac OS specifically, is it's referencing this path variable to know, okay, where do I get my Python from? Where do I get my we're going to install Oh My Zsh next here. Where is all that at? And so that's why you see that the way that you add things to the path here is typically you reference it as an environment variable, and then you go ahead and add like a colon plus another thing that you want to tack onto the path. So that is why this is here. So the reason I want to show this though is like you can actually do a couple of cool things with the like custom like things. So one thing here, hold on just a second. Where did that go? Okay, I'm looking at my outgoing MacBook, if you will, because I want to remind myself something. Okay, so one thing that I like to do, here, I'm just going to open a new, I'm getting so confused on what I'm working on right now because I got two laptops essentially. All right, so I've opened a new tab here in iTerm 2. What I wanted to highlight here is I keep all of my Git repositories in here. Well, we'll go ahead and we're going to do PWE. That stands for parent working directory. So you can see we're in users/DK Hunley. And then if I do an ls, so that's going to tell us all the files that we are working, or all of the directories that we have within our current location. So you can see here under documents. So if I go into CD documents, and then if I do an ls again, yes, then now that thing that I just had to do where macOS asked if it could have permission to my documents, that's just like a one-time thing. Again, this is a brand new MacBook here. So so you can see my repositories here. This is where I keep all my Git repositories. So every time that I open up a new tab here, I don't necessarily want to have to do this business of doing the CD documents, CD repositories thing. So the nice thing about hold on, always allow, sure. The nice thing about the ZSHRC file is you can set custom what they call aliases. So basically, let me go ahead and show you how to do that. So one thing, I don't necessarily recommend this, but what you can do directly within the terminal is you can actually open up like a text editor, if you will, and then write code and stuff directly within the terminal. The reason I don't like that is just because like we have IDEs like VS Code, which we're going to install VS Code later, other IDEs like IntelliJ or even Cursor and Windsurf. And those are really purpose-built tools that are really more designed for heavier coding. But for lightweight coding, working within the terminal can be okay. So there's typically two ways that you can do that. There's Vim and then there's Nano. I personally don't like Vim. It's just kind of confusing to me. And Nano's also a little bit confusing, but I personally find it less confusing. So I'm actually going to edit our ZSHRC file using I'm just going to, well, so by the way, ZSH, that stands for Z shell. And then I don't remember what RC stands for. So going forward, I'm just going to call it the Z shell file, just to not have to trip over my words every time I try to say ZSHRC, like I just did. So let's go ahead and edit it. So the way that we can edit this, and this is a default tool that's built into every terminal as well, this Nano tool. So we're going to do nano.zshrc as, oh wait, I'm not even in the right directory. That's why it's not recognizing this. All right, so nano.zshrc. Okay, so you can see this is what we were exactly looking at before. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an alias here. I'm going to say alias repos equals cd tilde. And so what this tilde thing is doing is saying, change directory back to my typical home directory. So every time I open up a new terminal, it always defaults to that user/dk Hunley path. So that's what the cd tilde is doing there, is saying, okay, I go back to this home directory. And then if we do a colon, that's basically saying, okay, that command's done. And then we can do cd documents /repositories. Okay. And that is it. Now to save this actually out from Nano, what you have to do is you have to hold down the control button, not to be confused with the command button. So the control button, and then you O, that is to write out. Now you can see at the bottom here where it says file name to write .zshrc. Now to actually get it to take, you just hit the enter key again. So now it is, you can see at the bottom it says wrote 6 lines. And that's just referencing the total lines of the file. We only wrote the one line there. And then to get out of it, we can just do a Control X, and now we're back out of it. Now, in order to get for these changes to take, we'll just go ahead and close out of iTerm and then reopen it back up here. All right, don't check. Oh, I should have clicked check automatically, darn it. All right, so now if I type in repos and then I hit enter, now we're in this repositories working directory where I have all my Git repos. And I did do a simple, so I guess I should have let off with this. I actually don't, I personally, like for iPhones, I will do the whole Apple backup thing and then have Apple restore it all for me. I do like it for the iPhones. I don't like that for the laptops or for like computers. I actually like to set these guys up from scratch. So I did do a direct system transfer just to get all my Git repositories, and that was it. Other than that, we are setting up this MacBook as if it is a fresh, new, out of the box, no backup for anything else MacBook. So just added the repositories in here. Okay, so yeah, I think that covers the ZSHRC file. Now we may have to go back in here. Let me look. I don't think that there's, I can't think. Well, yes, we will have to go back in here for some, what am I trying to say here? We're going to have to go back in here for some stuff related to Oh My Zsh, which is going to be our next topic here. So we just covered installing iTerm. We covered what the ZSHRC file is. Now this next one here, Oh My Zsh, is very much just like an aesthetics thing. Now there are extensions onto it that do add a little bit of functionality, and those are nice. In my opinion, Oh My Zsh is really just more so for aesthetic purposes. So let's actually go ahead and demonstrate. Oh, you know what? I just realized Well, let me go over here. Just Oh My Zsh, because I may not need to install this with Homebrew, so I may have these out of order. Do I have these out of order? No, I guess I can install it through a curl command. Okay, so this is, so I just want to revisit this here. So you can see we've got this is Oh My Zsh's website, and you can see here that we have the installation script down at the bottom. Now, it's been a long time since I've viewed this website, so I don't remember off the top of my head like everything on this website, but I do want to call out the themes, because the nice thing about Oh My Zsh is that it comes with a bunch of different themes that you can choose from, and again, these are all just aesthetically pleasing themes. There's not necessarily any functionality to these themes, so you can see they come with. I'm sure that there's reasoning behind these names. I don't understand the reasoning. So this one obviously is Robbie Russell. I think that's the default. We got AF Magic, AF Feller. So I just wanted to highlight this as, go through this website, look to find what you want. Whatever is going to best suit your needs. You can see, like, obviously there's a lot of overlap in between these. It's just minor aesthetically tweaked differences. So my personal favorite, we're going to have to scroll on down here, I'm going to assume it's in here, is called Steve. And I said it that way intentionally because it's got a couple extra E's in the middle there. All right, where is Steve at? Where are you at, Steve? Steve. Steve, where are you? Did I, Elemento PQ? There we go. There's Steve. This is my preferred theme here. It's rather minimal. There's nothing particularly fancy here, so let's go ahead and install Steve. Or install Oh My Zsh with Steve as the theme. Okay, so let me go back to here. I'm gonna go to Oh My Zsh install. All right, so let's go ahead and copy this. I'm gonna go ahead and close out an iTerm. It is bugging me though that like this header didn't. Let me try this again. Like what did I do silly here that it is not minimal maybe? Oh, it was not compact, it was minimal. Okay, there we go. That made everything uniform now. Now it's just one nice black tile. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and copy this. Now, before I run this command here, let's talk a little bit about like what is actually going on here. So we can see it starts off with sh. I believe that this is just a command to help invoke this script here. But what I want to focus on is the stuff within the quotation marks, beginning with the $sign here. So you can see the word curl here. And curl, I can't remember what curl stands for. It's definitely it's CURL for something, but basically it is our way to reach out to the internet and download something. And that's why you could see here that we got this this URL that we're referencing from, it looks like from GitHub specifically, and it's going to download this install script, and then then like this sh command is actually doing that running of the command, because if we just ran the curl command alone, all it would do is download the file, and then we'd have to go and run the file. This is kind of doing it in one shot, downloading it and installing it. So let's go ahead and install it. All right, do you want to overwrite it with the ZSH template? Sure. Yeah. Now, okay, so all right, I'm going to close out of that. Now, like I said, it does default to Robbie Russell. So now you can see that we do have a little bit of a different theming here. So if we want to change the theme and if we want to add extensions, we actually have to do that from the ZSHRC file. So I'm going to actually just nano back into it, nano.zshrc. All right. Oh, I forgot that it adds a bunch of this crap in here. I'm not what. So just again, another thing to be mindful of is it depends on your coding language that you're working in, but like within here, the reason that we have this pound sign or the number sign, if you will, at the, or hashtag, except hashtags are dead, according to Elon. That's basically to comment out code. And so when we say comment out, like that, like the intention of this is to like write human readable comments, and you can see that most of this is human readable comments. But the other intention that developers use these comment things for is if you want to keep a line of code, but you don't want it to actively do anything. So that's why you can see here on this line where it says ZSHR theme random candidates. And I didn't even know it could do this. Apparently, you can randomly select the candidates for you. Then then yeah, it'll reference this code, but it is currently commented out, so it's not actually going to do anything. And that's the one thing I forgot that ZSH does this, where it install, like, it has so much stuff in here. So what I'm actually going to do instead is I'm going to go, so if you do the open dot command in whatever directory you're in, it will actually open up the Finder, and you can see all the different directories and stuff. Now you'll notice that you don't see my ZSHRC file, and that is because by default, the Macs hide files that begin with a period, because files that begin with a period or directories that begin with a period are generally system files that you don't want to mess with. And there's a simple way to get to show up though. All you have to do is press Command Shift and period, and boom, there you go. There's all of our hidden files there. So you can see we got Oh My Zsh, we got Oh My ZSHRC in here. And so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go and open this with the text edit utility. Now text edit, this is another default application that comes with every single Mac. It is very simple. If you are a Windows user and you've used Notepad, or then yeah, this is basically just Notepad. Again, I don't recommend coding out of TextEdit. I just personally like to use TextEdit when I want to do something quick and dirty, and I don't necessarily want to do it in Nano, because the problem with Nano is, or even Vim, is you can't go with like your mouse and your cursor and like highlight a block of code like this and then delete it. Like, that's just not possible. But with TextEdit, you can. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna get rid of all this baloney here. Like, I don't need all these extra things that basically anything that it comments, like added as comments. I don't care. All we need is, what we need is actually very, very minimal. Okay, so I'm gonna delete all of these as well. I don't need any of these. I don't need any of these. Now I do want to keep plugins, because plugins is something that we'll talk about a little bit. Plugins are also referred to as extensions, and you could see that that is the next thing on our reminders list there. Okay, so this is really all I want to keep. What we need to keep is, we need to keep the theme, we need to keep the plugins, and we need to keep the source. Everything else in here should be able to go. It looks like it wiped out my, it looks like it may have wiped out my my LM Studio stuff, but that's okay. I'll get that reconfigured later. I should not have overwritten this. Okay, so this is all I really need right here. Yeah, nothing fancy at all. You can see here we've defaulted to Robbie Russell. So if I wanted to change the theme to one of those themes that we saw on the website, it is as simple as updating the nomenclature there. Darn auto correct. So this is, again, my preferred is Steve, and remember, it's got 3 E's in there. Yeah, where's it at? I don't. Whatever. I know it needs 3 E's. Now you'll see here that by default it comes with the one extension of Git. I like to add 2 other extensions. I like to add autocomplete and auto suggestions. So those are actually not default ones. Those are ones that we do have to get from the internet. I don't remember how to install those off the top of my head, so we're just gonna have to go look those up. Oh My Zsh, or just autocomplete. Autocomplete. And it'll tell us how to do this here. Sudo apt install. Okay, so it looks like it's using apt. All right, so let me just go ahead and copy this. So you could see it's already trying to ask to, in fact, I'm just gonna do this. I'm gonna just grab that only. All right. All right, so let me come back into here. Now, something I'm going to go ahead and paste this command, and let's talk about what this command is doing here. So sudo, that stands for super user do, I think. I don't remember the acronym specifically, but basically sudo is if you want to run things as an administrator, then you'll want to run things in sudo. Now, typically when you run this command like this, it will ask you to input your password. And again, this is going to be where if you are working within a company, they may have different, they may have like the sudo lockdown, and they may have a different path of like how you would install this. So like if I was on my work laptop right now, I would be installing these in a different way, but because I'm on my personal laptop, we can just do it just like this. So that's sudo. APT. I can't remember what APT stands for, but it's basically like Linux's way of being able to install Linux dependencies. So that's APT. So APT install. Install is obviously installing, and then we want to install the ZSH auto suggestion. So you can see here that it is asking for my password. Now, something that to recognize is that anytime they ask you for your password, I actually did go ahead and type out the full password there. It's not. It's intentionally not showing, like, because on websites, even if they mask out the your password, what frequently will happen is it will still show like that you typed like 10 characters or something like that. That is not the case with terminal. Like, but just something to recognize. It is still recognizing that you are typing stuff in there. So when I hit return right now, apt not found. Okay, so how about apt-get? All right, sudo apt-get install zsh auto suggestions. So I don't know the difference between apt and apt-get, but sometimes okay. All right, so let me go ahead and ask ChatGPT, how do I install apt on my Mac? Because I thought this was a default thing, but I guess not. Yeah, I know about Homebrew. We'll get to Homebrew in a little bit. Oh, it looks like it is recommended to use. Wow. That's funny that it kind of knew what I was. Oh, that's because I have the context set here. So I'm just using ChatGPT's little plugin tool here to kind of help me debug through the issue. So it is telling me that apparently I need to install things with Brew. So let's actually move this guy up higher. So we already completed Oh My Zsh. Now let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and install Homebrew. So what is Homebrew? Homebrew is basically the max version of a standard package installer, standard software installer. So when we download things like Python dependencies or JavaScript dependencies, we'll use the respective frameworks for those. So like for Python, those would be like pip installs or UVadds. Or for JavaScript stuff, it would be working through Node and NPM. To actually install just standard software, we want to use Homebrew. And so Homebrew is relatively simple to work with. In fact, it gave me the exact thing what I needed here. You know what? I don't want to do it from here, though. I want to show it so you can do it for yourself on your own computer if you'd like. We're just going to search. We're just going to Google up Homebrew. So Homebrew, you can see here, it's got the command to install. So let's go ahead and do that. Enter. All right, so I just paste it in the command, and it's going to download Homebrew for me. All right. I don't know how long this will take. I don't think it should take too long, though. Like, from my experience in the past, like, installing Homebrew is generally pretty quick. And then even installing things with Homebrew is also generally pretty quick. So it does look like I forgot to install some additional things for Xcode, but it's doing that for me right now, so whatever. All right, let me think here really quick while this is working. Is there anything that I'm forgetting to mention here? I don't think I'm forgetting to mention anything. All right, ZSHRC. Yeah, this is taking longer than I thought it would. Oh, yeah, so that is one thing I should have mentioned. This is something that, again, that I'm kind of hazy on, because a lot of the stuff that we do as developers, it's kind of like when we set up iTerm for that first time. It's you set it up for the first time, you set it, forget it. You don't necessarily need to mess with it again. So what I'm forgetting with Macs in particular is whenever you want to do any sort of coding anything, you actually need to download their special command line tools. And I forgot that it's like a gigabyte or so. So that's why it took a while there to do that download, and now is doing the install. So if I had done that prior to, and I don't even remember how to do that off the top of my head. Again, this is another one of those you set it, forget it kind of things. And so I've not done it in long enough that I don't really remember how to do it. All right, so Homebrew is installed. So I'm just gonna refresh iTerm just to make sure. Okay, so you can see that we do now have my Steve theme in place, because you can see that it's got my username, DK Hunley, at my computer name, David's M5 MacBook Pro. All right, and then if we do things like repos, oh, it wiped out my alias command. Shoot. All right, well, we can fix that super easily. nano.zshrc. All right, I forgot that it wiped everything out whenever I did this, so I'm going to say alias repos equals change directory back to the home directory, and then change it again to documents / repositories. Okay, write it out, exit iterm, come back in. Now we should be able to go into our repos. And then, so if I were to go into any of these repos, I'm just going to go into, so this is one that we work in very frequently, this GenAIMS. What I want to highlight here is you can see, if I move my face out of the way, or if I move this out of the way, so you can see after the directory here that you see within the parentheses, we got this word main and then a red dot next to it. So this is Git in action. This is referencing two things here, and we'll talk a little bit more. Well, maybe I should pause that until we talk about Git, because it'll be a little bit confusing if I try to do that now. So yeah, let's pause that for a second. So we can check another thing off the box though. Homebrew, done. Now Homebrew we use for quite a few things. I'm not going to use it I'm not going to install 100% of everything that I use here today. We'd be here all day for that. But for things like the AWS, like working with Amazon Web Services using their command line tool, I would use Homebrew for that. I'm trying to think what else I would use Homebrew for. There's just lots of different things you'd use Homebrew for. It's just that when you get to the lower level coding languages, like, again, Python or JavaScript, they do have their own package installers that Homebrew is not necessarily set up for, and that's okay. We'll demonstrate how we can use those in a little bit. All right, so that covers that. So let's go back to our ZSH extensions, and if we remind ourselves, so I wanted to install the ZSH auto suggestions. So, oh yeah, we can use Homebrew for that. So again, we just do brew install ZSH auto suggestions, and it is going to add that in. Now, I also want to install, how can I also install ZSH auto complete? And there's a number of different extensions that are available for iTerm2. I'm just going to copy these couple in here. So we have the ZSH completions, and we have the ZSH auto suggestions. And all right, so now we can go into, like, let's do a cd tilde, go back home, clear it out, clear out our screen. Now if we go back into the ZSHRC file, ZSHRC, boom. Now to add these plugins, what we need to do is simply go and reference them by their appropriate name. So let's make sure that we are, I just want to show you where they're at, so you're referencing them appropriately. So typically you have this hidden file that is called .oh my zsh with dashes in the middle there. Now if you come on down to plugins, you can see all the various plugins that are installed by default. And I'm hoping that the ones that we just installed, ZSH auto suggestions and stuff, should be in here. And they're not. Where are they then? Where did they put them? I don't even know where would have installed that at. Let me ask ChatGPT again. Enable it in your ZSHRC. So brew path prefix. How can I reference both the ZSH auto suggestions and auto complete from ZSHRC if they were both installed by Homebrew? Okay. I'll figure that part out later. But typically the way this works is you would just go into like our nano editor here and just add additional plugins here. That was, so the way I typically, like the way I typically download these extensions in the past is actually download them as files into my downloads file. So I'm gonna have to come back and figure that out. That's not really super important though. That's just really kind of adding some extra flavoring on top of our terminal here. So I'm going to call that done for now. All right, so let's move on to Git. Now, let us not confuse Git with GitHub or GitLab. That is a very common mistake, and that was something that I, even myself, when I was starting off in my early coding days, that something I would confuse quite regularly. Git itself is essentially a version management system. Why is this important? So you can think in the coding world, like I'm writing an application or something. Let's say I write all my code and I need to roll it back. There was like some sort of bug or whatever, and I need to roll it back to a previous version. With Git, I can do that rather easily. And then there's also this whole notion of branching. So what branching is like, let's say you got your core code base that I'm working on right now, and I'm a developer. I come along. I want to work on a new feature that I want to add. Whatever. I'm adding some new button to some user interface or whatever. It could be anything. And I don't want to mess with that core code base because that core code base is running up in production, so I don't want to mess with that. So what we would do then is we would actually recommend, say, okay, let's actually create, we got our main branch here. Let's go ahead and branch this off into a new branch. So you're still working with all that code from the code branch, the main code branch, and then, but you're doing it in a safer place because now you're doing it in a kind of a different context, if you will. And then let's say you get to the point where you're happy with your code and you're ready for it to be to go back to the main code base. Then you would merge that code back in to the main branch. Yeah, so that is a super rudimentary explanation of Git. The way we simply install Git is by doing brew install Git, and that will install Git for us. All right, we'll give that just a second. All right, so Git is now installed. Now, this is where I was starting to get ahead of myself, but I want to go ahead and show this now. So I'm going to go and show this this directory. Oops, cd gen ai miscellaneous. All right, so what I was noting here before is, so you'll see after the file path, the green text where it says in the parentheses main, and then you have the red dot. So this is Git in action here. This is what I was starting to talk about before. So what this is noting is we are currently on the main branch. So if I was if I wanted to branch off my code into a different branch, and you can name those branches whatever you want. So if I called it my dev branch or my test branch, I could do that. You would see the wording. You would see the wording here where it says main there change to be whatever the respective name of the branch that you have checked out is. And then you might be wondering, well, what's that red dot there? So whenever we produce new code, it's not like when you think about Microsoft Word or something like that. Microsoft Word might be doing an autosave, or you might have to do like a Command S to save. With Git, it kind of takes things a step further intentionally. And what I mean by that is it does not automatically save your code to your branch, if you will. You actually have to first stage the code, and then you actually have to commit the code. And so what this is noting here is it's noting, okay, the red dot specifically is telling me I have created a new file somewhere in this repository here that I have neither staged nor committed. So if I had like a green dot here, that would indicate I have a new file that I have staged but maybe not necessarily committed. Or maybe, I don't know, there's a couple different colors, but it's nice to have that here within the terminal because I can instantly see here, okay, somewhere in this code base, I have a file here that I have neither committed nor, or neither staged nor committed. And that would mean if I've neither staged nor committed those, then I'm not pushed them up into something like GitHub. And so maybe I need to be cognizant of that because maybe I've written some code on my local machine here and I need to get it up into production, or I need another person needs to reference it or something. So that is why I like and just for contrast, let's go back and open the standard terminal. And oh, I forgot, the standard terminal also inherits the SH. Never mind. What I was going to highlight here is just the contrast between what you get with the standard terminal versus what you get with iTerm. But I forgot that because it's the ZSHRC file, that terminal also inherits this. By default, you just don't get this stuff. Like right out of the box, when you open up your Mac, you just don't get some of these nice little aesthetic touches that help that you know, they're not life changing, but they're nice for the development process. All right, so we covered that. let's go ahead and check off that box. All right, the next thing I want to cover is, so we talked about Git in general. So now we have, you might be familiar with GitHub, most likely, and maybe you've heard of GitLab. GitLab is another popular tool out there, but most people in the world are very familiar with GitHub specifically. And GitHub is, Microsoft owns it now. I got to take a sip of my drink here real quick. Okay, so Microsoft owns GitHub now, and it is a place where people can go and share code and such, and so it is used all over the world. Now, in order for me to be able to, like, and as you can kind of imagine, like if I'm maintaining all these my code bases up on GitHub, I don't want just any Joe Schmo going and adding code to my repositories or whatever. I want them to have the appropriate permissions or have whatever merge requests or pull requests, I guess they're called on GitHub, the permissions associated to that. So the way that we can manage that here, well, there's actually two ways you can do it. You can do it through what is called HTTPS, or you can do it through SSH. I prefer to do things through SSH. However, getting the SSH is a little bit tricky to get set up. So let's go ahead and cover that. So I don't even, again, this is another one of those things that you set and forget. So I don't really remember how to do this off the top of my head. So I'm going to do GitHub SSH Mac, and it'll give us the instructions. All right, so the very first, so basically what we're going to go through here is this documentation here, and there's various commands for Windows, or various instructions for Windows and Linux as well here. We're going to stick with Mac. So what we needed to do first here is we needed to generate a new keygen, or an SSH key. Now, this is sensitive information, so at the point when we start to like I actually generate this SSH key, I'm going to hide my screen because I don't need you all seeing that. So, yeah, so like I'm basically just going to, well, do I want to copy I'm just going to copy the first part of this example. So I'm going to copy this, I'm going to do a space, and then I'm going to put my email here, gmail.com, @gmail.com. I knew that looked funky. All right, so let's go ahead and run that. Now, so it's going to ask a couple of questions of like where you want to save this SSH key and stuff. You don't actually have to fill these in. Like these are actually, they look required, but what they're indicating in parentheses there, where it says user/dkhunley.ssh/id ed25519, that is indicating where the default path is if you don't fill anything at all. So I'm actually going to keep the defaults here for everything. Now you can enter a passphrase here, so anytime you want to do something like a push up to GitHub, you would have to put in the passcode. I'm not going to do that because I already have security on the MacBook itself, meaning like if I handed this Mac to somebody else, like you can't get into it with like my password or my Touch ID or whatever. So adding another password here is just frivolous, and nobody ever touches my personal MacBook here anyway. So I'm just gonna go ahead and hit enter. But now I'm gonna hide my screen here for a second because I think this is where we are gonna start to get into some sensitive credential land. And yes, we got some sensitive credentials showing up here. So I'm gonna go ahead and clear out. So basically, what you're gonna do here is just talking you through it. You're going to hit enter a couple more times, and then it's eventually going to show this random art image thing, and we can ignore that for now. Now, I'm just going to clear things out, and I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen again. So now you can see that there's nothing here. So that's part one. Now, we do need to, and that's what all these instructions are noting here is basically the exact same thing. Now, we do need to add our SSH key to the SSH agent thing here. Now, to be clear, this is where I'm starting to get a little bit beyond my technical know-how. Like all these commands work and stuff, I just can't necessarily explain to you like precisely well like what's going on behind the scenes. So I'm just going to go ahead and open or run these commands as they are recommending. So you can see that we need to do that. Now we need to mess with these things here. All right, so I need to open. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to full screen this thing. Do a side by side. All right, so I need to go to, all right, cd tilde. I'm going to do a clear. All right, open .ssh/config. Config does not exist. All right, so we're going to do a touch. So touch, this is I don't know why they call it touch, but basically this is the Linux command that we run to just create an empty folder. Or, I'm sorry, not an empty folder, but an empty file. So I'm going to go ahead and run or type this out here, .ssh/config. All right, so that has been created now. Now it says open this up and then modify the files to contain the following lines if your SSH key is a different name. So, all right, I'm just going to copy this. All right, so I'm going to do ls-a. So by the way, I should have showed you what I did there. So if you just do a standard ls, I can't remember what ls stands for, but that's just going to list out all the files and directories that you have within wherever you're currently at. If you want to see all the hidden files and stuff, it's just ls-a. And so you can see here now, I want to go to .cd.ssh cat config. So I'm going to assume there's nothing in this config file here. Okay, clear. All right, so I'm just going to use nano config. Oops, didn't mean to copy that. All right, so I'm going to do host github.com. All right, and then add keys to agent, yes. Use key chain, yes. Identity file tilde SSH ID 825519. Write it out. Boom. All right. Now I need to run this command, it looks like. SSH add, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Added that. Now generate a new SSH key. So I'm not using a hardware security key, I'm just using a software security key. So that all covers that. Now I need to actually go into GitHub and actually add this SSH key into my Mac. So the way that we can do that here is just by following these instructions. So what this command here is doing, what pbcopy does is it's basically like when you run, like let's say I got the output here. If I run pbcopy, what that's basically going to do is it's going to take whatever is in the contents of that file and add it to my clipboard. The clipboard being like the copy and paste thing. So it's basically what this is saying is that, okay, I got my SSH key in here. Let's go ahead and just use pbcopy to copy it out. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this out as such. Now this is not, oops. Looks like it added the extra $sign in there. I didn't mean to do that. All right, so let's go ahead and take that out. So now that has copied my SSH key to my clipboard. So now I can actually take it into GitHub and add in my SSH keys. All right, so I'm actually gonna, I think we're kind of done in here. All right, so let me go into, all right, so I need to go to the access section. I might need to sign into my GitHub here. Oh, looks like I may already have done that. Okay, so if I go into GitHub, I think it's in my profile settings, SSH and GPG keys here. So you can see I've got all these different different SSH keys. I'm actually going to go ahead and delete this one because I'm about to get rid of this Mac right after this stream. So I'm going to call this my 2025 M5 MacBook Pro. Now I'm going to hide my screen here again because I'm going to paste in my key and I don't want to reveal that to you all. But basically all you got to do is paste in the key and then click that green add SSH key button in, and then we're good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and hide my screen from y'all for just a second. I'm going to go ahead and hit add SSH key here. Looks like I do need to sign in with GitHub. I have multi-factor authentication set up on here, so that's why I pulled up my iPhone here because I'm doing the MFA. And I should be good now. All right, let me go ahead and show my screen again. All right, there you go. So now we've added that to my SSH key here. So it has never been used. Now let's go back into let's go into one of these repositories just to demonstrate that I actually can write out to one of these things. So I'm going to go to maybe an older one, CD movie ratings model. All right, so you can, well, I don't want to do that one. All right, whatever. It should work though. Anytime I wanted to push up any code into my personal GitHub, now I should be able to do it. I'm not showing my keys. No, Kevin. No, I'm not showing the keys. I know better than that. All right, so that covers GitHub. All right, so let's move on to Python. So with Python, we're actually going to use UV. So what UV is, this is a newer version of like a way to like help manage your Python libraries and your Python dependencies. It has become very quickly the industry standard within the last year. Everybody that I know personally that's used it has loved it, including myself. So instead of managing Python dependencies is such a pain in the rear. Like there are plenty of memes out there that kind of demonstrate like talking about like how much of a pain it is. I don't know what secret sauce UV came up with, but I love it. And so that's what we're going to end up using. So I'm going to open it back up iTerm again. And so I'm just going to do brew install UV. I think I can do it this way. Okay, so, all right, so now I should be able to clear, all right, UV. Yep, all right, so we have UV now installed, so I'm gonna do UV Python install. Now, I've been personally operating on Python 3.12. Just something to be aware of with Python versions, and this is a little bit frustrating. Hold on, I don't even know if this is the right command. Okay, it was the right command. All right. The frustrating thing here is that Python. So as of like 2 or 3 weeks ago, Python officially launched actually 3.14. They released generally one new major version a year. So like 2 years ago would have been 3.12. Last year would have been 3.13. This year is 3.14. So you may be wondering, why am I not jumping to 3.14? And this is no fault of necessarily Python itself, but when we use Python dependencies, so like any sort of libraries that we want to install, so for data science, we use like pandas, numpy, scikit-learn, etc., pytorch, whatever. Those dependencies need to be updated to be compatible with the newest software. And unfortunately, the dependencies generally take like a year or two to get fully updated. So most often you'll see developers, including myself, actually use like 2 previous generations ago. And that's why I'm on Python 3.12 and I'm not jumping to 3.14. I probably should try out 3.14 just to see like what sort of incompatibilities I run into. But I've just gotten bit so many times in the past with that I'm not doing that here today. So so you can see though, I just installed Python there. So if I go Python 3.12, then well, of course it didn't work there. Warning, it is not on your path. Oh, that is because, so you can see here that I have not updated my path appropriately here. So we actually do need to go into the ZSHRC file again. And then we need to add this on at the bottom. So we're gonna add this to our path. Yeah, I'm gonna write that out. I'm gonna clear exit terminal. All right, so now if I run Python 3.12, now it's working. Okay, so that installs Python. Super, 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 super easy with UV. And the nice thing about UV specifically is it is installing like an optimized version of Python. Well, do I want to show that? Yeah, I guess you'll just have to trust me on that. It's installing a version that is going to be that is optimal to run on like these newer generation Macs, because I want to say that UV is built on top of a framework called Rust, and I don't want to go into that. But if you know what Rust is, then you know what I'm talking about. All right, so boom, Python is done. All right, this next one up here, this is more so for me because so Node.js, this is really for web development. So people who are doing backend sort of work, the backend sort of work being like the AI stuff that we typically do. I typically use Python for everything. Or if you're like a data engineer, you would use Python, SQL, a couple of their backend for sort of frameworks. So what I'm installing next here, generally speaking, is not required. For things like backend work, but because I do have a personal interest in getting more into like web development, I do want to install this anyway. Now again, this is one of those things, again, I don't remember off the top of my head how to install JS install. So we're just going to go to Google. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a homebrew thing. Yeah, I want to do homebrew. Yeah, just brew install this thing for me, please. Yeah, so I'm just going to brew install. And you can see using homebrew is so nice and so easy. Like that's why I prefer to use homebrew over whatever else they were recommending before. So we'll give it a second, and then we'll have our stuff installed here again. Okay. I can't believe it's already been an hour. Dang. All right, so that covers. All right, Node should now be installed. All right, so if I run npm, all right, maybe I need to close out and come back in. npm node. All right, I don't know why it didn't work. Okay, not really a huge deal though, because most of you, if you follow along with my streams and stuff, we use Python and stuff anyway. Node is not a big deal. I'll debug that later. I just want to keep moving on for time's sake right now. All right, so we're getting close to the end though. So let's go ahead and install Docker. So what is Docker? So Docker, it is the way that we manage these what are called containers. So simply put, the way to download Docker is by going to the Docker website and just doing the Docker desktop. So you'll just want to select the one that is appropriate for you. Now, I see in here that it does still have the download for Mac Intel chip. Just for context, if you're not aware, so around middle of 2020, the year 2020, Apple decided to switch all of the processors inside their MacBooks to their own proprietary chips, which are now referred to as the Apple Silicon chips. Prior to that, they were using the Intel chips. So I guess I do understand why they still have the Intel one on here, because it has only been like 5 years, and I guess it's possible that there are people out there still on older Macs. But if you've purchased a Mac at all in the last 2 or 3 years, chances are you are on an Apple Silicon chip. And if you want to verify that, the easy way to verify that is just by going up to the top left corner here, where you can see the Mac icon, and you just go to About This Mac. You will see the chip here, and typically, well, for all of the Macs, it will always begin with the letter M. So you can see this is an M5 Mac. Naturally, the very first version was the M1 Mac. So yeah, that if you want to and so if you had like an Intel Mac, you would be able to know here. The other simple kind of way to understand it is like if you have one of those Macs with a touch bar. So I don't know if you remember that. They went back with this version, like with the M series chips, to a standard set of buttons. But you might recall there was actually like a little touch screen at the top of your keyboard. If you have one of those, you definitely have an Intel Mac for sure. That's kind of an easy way to judge it for yourself. Or if you can kind of see the notch at the top here. If you have a notch, then you can kind of guarantee yourself that you have an Apple Silicon Mac. That's just a general rule of thumb. All right, so I went ahead and downloaded Docker. So we install Docker just like we do any standard application. So we're going to go ahead and drag that into here. And Docker is used quite a bit to build like what are called Docker images. And Docker images are basically a smaller, lightweight version of like an operating system, if you will. I'm not explaining this well, but it's like a virtual environment where you like a lot of cloud services or rely heavily on Dockerized containers anymore. And just for context, again, this kind of goes back to the reason why people like to develop on Macs. Think about both Windows and Mac OS just as operating systems amongst themselves. These are mostly proprietary systems. I guess you could say Windows is a little bit more open, but what both of them have is the limitation in the sense of you actually have to pay to install these. Like I don't, and it's kind of funky now, especially when you think about Windows. Like I don't know if Windows charges anymore. Like I can remember, I'm old enough to remember. I got my first MacBook back when I was in college in 2009. If you wanted to upgrade to the latest operating system, you actually had to pay cash for that. Well, not literal cash. You could pay with like a credit card, but you actually had to pay money. Like we're now so fortunate these days that like every time a new major release of an operating system comes out, pending that your hardware can support it, you get it for free. And the reason I note that is because when we want to deploy stuff out for to like AWS SageMaker or any of these AWS services, we don't want to have to spend that money on the operating system. And so all these Docker containers are generally built on top of Linux. And so like if you are familiar with Amazon Web Services, you might recall that they have their own custom version of like a base image. I think they call it like, oh man, I can't even remember what they call it now. It's like Amazon something. All right, I'm just gonna search it. What is the name of AWS's standard Docker image? It's something. It now ends in 2. The Amazon Linux. I mean, that could be it. That doesn't sound familiar though. It could just be called the Amazon Linux image. I don't recall. But that is why developers use Linux. And so the challenge, I don't want to say it's impossible. It is definitely not an impossibility to code on a Windows machine. Lots of people do it. I definitely know it. It's just not as easy because you now have to because Windows is its own operating system. It's not built on top of Linux. You have to do some special things to get it to work, like you are working with Linux. And Windows has tried to make things better with something called WSL. I can't remember exactly what that stands for. I think it stands for Windows something Linux. It's basically like an emulation thing to try to emulate Linux on top of Windows. And it's kind of hit or miss. Like I do have a Windows machine sitting over here, and it works for some things, but it's just kind of funky with other things. And so I really don't like using a Windows machine for development because it's so hacky to try to build like Docker images and such. It works, just to be clear, but it's not as easy as you just straight up using a Mac. So if anybody ever is like wonders, well, is it just like a vanity product thing? Like the reason that people like to use Macs for developer? A little bit, yeah. Let's be honest. These are beautiful machines, so there is a vanity element there. But there is a true development reason of why people prefer to use Mac over Windows. All right, that covers Docker. Now, well, I guess I could actually open up Docker here, and then. Right, so let's go ahead and open it. By and large, though, like it kind of works pretty much right out of the box. I'm just going to use the recommended settings. Hold on here. I don't want to show my password or even how long the password is. All right. Allow. Skip. All right, so we already have this installed. Now, the only thing I want to do on here is I actually like for Linux to, or I'm sorry, for Docker to start up every time my machine restarts, and it looks like it's already set up that way. So now to be clear, that means like I want to. Do I want to open up the Docker dashboard when the desktop starts? No, I actually want to reverse these. I want to start the desktop Docker when I sign into my computer, but I don't necessarily want to open up this interface that we're looking at here. I think that's how that works. So that is the only setting that we're going to change here. Just again, something to be aware of. So whenever you download Docker images, it's going to come directly from Docker Hub. So like if I go to Docker Hub Python, so like if I were to install like a Python image from Docker, it's coming from here. There are a lot of companies out there that for security reasons are sensitive to not want to download things directly from something like Docker Hub. So what they'll do is one of the most popular softwares out there is a software called JFrog. And JFrog, what it's basically doing is it's saying, okay, instead of pulling, like if I wanted to pull a Python image directly, what it's going to do is I'm going to pull the Python image from where it sits now into JFrog, and then JFrog can do scans and stuff to make sure that there's nothing like weird or in there. Or you can set custom rules that say, no, you're not allowed to download this specific tool. And then your developer would actually download from JFrog. Now, from the developer's perspective, it looks the exact same. So let me just go ahead and demonstrate in the terminal here. So if I wanted to download like this Python image here, let's go ahead and, wow, I can't believe 3.15 is already in preview here. We'll just grab this one, 3.14 bookworm. Where can I just simply copy it? Dang it. All right, Docker pull. All right, what is it called? Docker pull Python text summary. Usually there's like a little thing that you could just Python. I'm just gonna do Python 3.12 and hope this works. All right, allow. So what this is doing is it's downloading the image from the internet right now. It's not doing anything. So Docker pull, it just pulls the image. It doesn't actually run anything. It's similar to the curl command, how the curl command is just downloading something. It's not actually running anything. So we went ahead and downloaded it right now. And this is what I was talking about in terms of JFrog, is if I was using JFrog, so this is pulling from the public internet, but like if the way to set up JFrog is just some like backend stuff. And so then to pull from JFrog, it's running the exact same Docker pull command. It's just that behind the scenes, there's some sort of configuration that's saying, okay, well, now we're pulling from JFrog. Now, I don't know, I just went into that just again. If you're watching this and you're interested in setting up your tools on some sort of company machine, just be aware that it's going to be different than how we would do it on like our own personal MacBook. So here I don't have to worry about any of that JFrog stuff because I'm personally unconcerned with that because I'm careful with what I do, and so I'm not going to go paying money for an extra product if I'm good on that. All right, so that covers Docker, and finally, we will end our stream with covering VS Code. All right, so VS Code is an integrated development environment, an IDE. We were talking earlier on. Let's show it just one more time here. So if I wanted to write code directly within the terminal here or iTerm here, then I could use something like Vim or Nano. So this is Nano. Let me actually show Vim. Oops, cancel. Vim.zshrc. So Vim is going to be very similar. It's just that like the reason I don't like Vim is that it's not clear on how you actually like save stuff and get out of it. Whereas at like Nano, if you recall, it showed like a bar at the bottom of the screen that actually showed like write out and stuff and like the hotkeys that you would have to press here. For Vim, it doesn't show that. You just kind of have to know. So to get out of here for Vim, it's actually you hit the escape key, or do you hit the escape key? Escape. Yeah, escape, and then the colon, and then Q. Now, if I were to do WQ, that would write it out. So W would stand for write, and then Q would stand for quit. I don't want to do any edits here. I just want to get out of here. So I'm just going to do colon Q, and that's going to get me out of here. But this is, in my opinion, not the optimal way to write code. You want something with syntax highlighting. You want something with like extra bells and whistles. As you are very familiar with, if you've watched my streams before, I like to work out of Jupyter Notebooks, and VS Code has a really nice Jupyter Notebook plugin. So using Vim and Nano are not, in my opinion, ideal. So the way that we install the VS Code here is simply we go to VS Code website. That is not it there. Let's just, well, I guess we can do it from here and download VS Code. And then we're just going to download the Mac version here. Go ahead and hit allow. Okay, and then simply put, we're going to come into here, and then I'm just going to drag this over into my applications. Now, I actually want to take things a step further here. So I want to, where is iTerm? I want to actually add these to my doc here because these are things that I use all the time. So I'm going to add that, and I'm going to add VS Code to my doc. Okay, boom. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open up VS Code here. Yes. All right, and there are a couple things that we now. I mean, you're pretty much good to go right out of the box. But there are a couple things that I'm going to show you of things that I like to configure in here. So we can go ahead and check this off, though. We already did that. So let's go ahead and talk about VS Code extensions. Well, there is one really quick thing, though. If we come up to the search bar at the top here, you can actually see it's more than just a search bar. You can actually run some basic commands in here. And so one basic command that I like to do here is code. So you can see here when I typed in code, if we scroll on down here, you can see there's this shell command, install code command in path. Okay, so what this is doing, hold on, I don't want to show my password again. All right, now it is installed on the path. Okay, so let's go ahead and exit out of VS Code. The reason I like to do this is so like if I'm in the repository, my repositories here, and if I go into cd gen AI miss, for example, and I'm already in my directory, this is the code where my code is at, and I want to immediately jump into VS Code. Now that I've installed this, all I have to do is do a code dot, period like that, and boom, we are here. We went ahead and opened the VS Code with this in tow here, so that is nice. Now, so this is, so that's that. Now let's go ahead and cover some extensions that I use pretty frequently, and this is again going to be a kind of your results may vary. So I'm gonna go ahead and install some of my common ones. So like I obviously use Python a lot. Excuse me. I mentioned that I use Jupyter Notebooks a lot. I'm trying to think of what else. Let's go. I was going to talk about GitHub Copilot in a little bit, but let's go ahead and we'll do that in tandem. we'll just call these done in tandem, and then once we're done with this, then we'll wrap up the stream. So let's go ahead and install GitHub Copilot. What else? Allow. Looks like we need to. All right, that installed. I think that covers the basic ones. There's probably some other ones that I'm forgetting. But one thing that didn't show up on like the popular ones here that I personally like, this is just an aesthetic choice, Atom 1 Dark Pro. So this is just a theme that helps to give a different aesthetic to like the coloration of VS Code. It doesn't actually do anything. It's just a prettification, if you will. So I'm just going to go ahead and install, and then I personally like the One Dark Pro Night Flat. That's what I've been using more recently. And so now you can see here, if I go into one of these files, that it is giving coloration to my syntax here that was not necessarily present before. That was a weird way to phrase it. It was not this color before. It was a different color. Again, that was just an aesthetic choice. And then you can customize the like what you see up on here on the left. So this is like the extensions. I'm very much a minimalist, so I only like to keep the things in here that I'm constantly using. So I keep the Explorer, I keep search. Over here, this is Git essentially. So you can see here that I've had a number of files that I've added or I've made changes to, so I could actually directly commit those if I wanted to from here. Which I'm not going to worry about that for now. So let's go ahead and set, so GitHub Copilot, it looks like by and large it was already set up, but I do need to actually sign in order to make use of it. So down here on the bottom left, you can see this little person icon here. So we're just going to do sign in with GitHub to use Copilot. And it is simply put, just like you log in for Netflix or whatever other service you want to do, you just pop in your login information. Now, if you recall early on in the stream, I did already log into GitHub, so that's why it didn't prompt me for my password or anything again. I highly encourage whatever service you're using, whether it's GitHub, whether it's Netflix or whatever, if it offers multi-factor authentication, do it. It is just an extra layer of safety, yeah, so it's just going to help you keep all your stuff safe and such. Yeah, so I use, by the way, like there are different apps like on an iPhone, for example, that you could use for like multi-factor authentication. I personally just use Microsoft Authenticator. There also is Google Authenticator. Those are the two most popular. I'm sure that there are others as well. So that covers that. So that should, with that installation there, let me just go ahead and ask, I'm just going to do, just to test to make sure this is doing. Explain this file to me, just to make, oh, I guess you can't see that because my face is in the way. Let me move my face. Okay, and it did work. So basically, like just at the bottom right hand window here, I was just demonstrating how I could invoke GitHub Copilot just to make sure that I would not have gotten a response if I was not logged in appropriately, and I did get a response here, so that works. All right, is there anything else I want to cover? I mean, I'm a pretty basic person when it comes to VS Code. Like, I don't like to add a whole lot of stuff in here. There may be some extensions that I'm forgetting about that I'll just have to go back and add later. Nothing a big deal. Now, the one thing I do like about VS Code specifically as well is if you hit Command J on your keyboard, then you can see that it also brings up a terminal interface right here directly in line. So if you don't want to be jumping back and forth between iTerm and you just want to go to like the terminal here within the VS Code, it's the same thing. And you can see we got the whole Oh My Zsh and Steve formatting in here as well. So yeah, let me think for a second. I think that covers everything. One thing I did not touch on in here is the installation of Xcode. Xcode, and this is another reason why I chose to go ahead and upgrade my Mac right now, is I'm interested in both web development and app development. And if you're aware, I like to do a lot of my coding on an iPad. So let's cover the three different kinds of coding that you can kind of do at a general level. You have backend coding. So backend coding would be working with like Python or SQL or whatever else to build backend systems. Doing backend coding from the iPad, and just for context, the way that I'm using my iPad is I'm actually using what is a service called GitHub Tunnels. And so what that actually is doing is from my iPad within the web browser. So that could be the Chrome web browser, the Safari web browser. I'm actually creating a tunnel, if you will, to my Mac Mini. So I have a Mac Mini that's sitting across the room, and basically I'm able to open up VS Code that way. In fact, let me go ahead and just show that, like, because I can do it even from here. So if I go to VS Code Web, now I'm going to connect to my Mac Mini from here. So retry, continue. Now we're going to give it a second, and you should see the Mac Mini show up here. All right, Mac Mini Online Local. I'm going to go ahead and close out these extra tabs. I'm going to close out this. All right, so I'm going to need to go to Files. It's still opening the remote. Now keep in mind here, we are in Safari right now. We are not necessarily in VS Code. I'm going to go ahead and do Open Folder, Documents, Repositories. Name is same code base that we're working from here. As you can see, this is essentially VS Code in a web browser. And so this is how I've been able to do all of my backend coding from an iPad. Now, granted, I'm augmenting myself with the Mac Mini, like being essentially the backend server. But from a user perspective, I'm able to do everything on my iPad just fine. So from a backend perspective, coding from the iPad through something like VSCode.dev, no problem at all. Let's talk a little bit about web development. Web development, now we start to get a little bit more iffy. And the reason it starts to get more iffy is, keep in mind that we're using GitHub tunnels here to actually do like an SSH tunnel into my Mac Mini. And so if I were to do local development for a website, keep in mind that is locally hosting it on the Mac Mini. And so how do you get that to show up on the iPad screen? You got to jump through some hoops. It's possible, but that starts to become more development. So again, let's recap. Backend, totally fine. Front-end development with web development, doable, but harder. And then let's come into app development. App development is a hard stop. You cannot do that on the iPad. Which is kind of mind-blowing to think about, because all app development, iOS app development, I should say, not Android app development, is done through Xcode, which is this proprietary, it's kind of like VS Code a little bit, and I'll go ahead and start it up here. I was actually kind of vibe coding something last night. This is Xcode, and this is how you write apps and such. So I'm going to go, what you can see up on the left is just like our files, very similar to VS Code. Here in the middle is the code, and then this is going to take a second to start up here because it's initializing. I don't know if you can see that. My face looks like it might be in the way again here. But what this is off on the right is like a canvas that kind of displays like the preview of what you're going to be working on. So you can see, I don't know if I want to show this yet because this might be our next series. So Apple, well, I'll go ahead and talk through it anyway. What Apple has done is, so you might be familiar with Apple Intelligence and how Apple has really been pushing like AI on their local smartphones. With the recent release of iOS 26, the recent like most version of iOS, they have actually added what they're calling the Foundation Models Framework. Apple Foundation Models Framework. And what this is basically doing is I don't know how they built their models, but Apple is basically saying, like, with the last major version of whatever added Apple Intelligence in order to do like the basic features, they're basically now opening the models on the local iPhone device for anybody to interact with. So you can see here, and honestly, this was just vibe coded. I actually did vibe code a thing where like we can actually run basically like a chat GPT like interface from the iPhone directly. So you can see here, like if I open up like a new chat, and then if I might have to scroll down a little bit, and I'm going to type in tell me some information about the 16th president. All right, and I've not actually tried to install this on my personal iPhone yet, but you can see here, this is all just running locally. This is just using the built-in hardware of the Mac and the Foundation Models Framework. which I think is really interesting, and I want to test more of that out. But all that to say is, so in order to do any sort of iOS app development, you must use Xcode, and Xcode is completely unavailable on the iPad in any capacity. Like, there's hard stop, you must use a Mac, which is frustrating. And yeah, there is something called Swift Playgrounds, and at one point, like 5 years ago, Swift Playgrounds was like being kept up to be kind of like an equivalent to Xcode of sorts. And there was actually a functionality where you could actually deploy apps directly from the iPad from Swift Playgrounds up to the App Store. Apple has since removed that, and Apple is no longer keeping these in parity, meaning that like Swift Playgrounds is basically falling behind now, and it doesn't seem like they're necessarily keeping it up to date anymore. So I wouldn't be surprised if Swift Playgrounds goes away soon. Okay. I think that is all I want to cover for today. That covers everything that I can think of off the top of my head. I'm sure I'm missing something, but we are already at an hour and a half, and I got a busy afternoon. There's a trunk or treat at the school a little bit later, so I got to go help set up for that here shortly. And yeah, I just got a haircut too, and I didn't even... I'm so like behind right now. Like, I usually like to take a shower after I get a haircut, because like I got tiny hair, so like whenever I get a haircut, like all the hair goes down the back of my shirt, and then it makes my back all itchy. So I've not even had a chance to shower yet after my haircut for that. So I think I'm probably gonna do that. And then we got, like I mentioned, the trunk or treat stuff. So hope you found this stream useful. Oh, that is one thing I do want to cover really quick. Here, let me set down my MacBook, because if you were wondering, well, wouldn't this be nice to have in like a written form that you can follow? And the answer is, I kind of do have one of those. Now, I don't update this all the time, so I don't know how up to date this is, but if you go to dkayhunley.com, it's going to take you to a link tree, and if you notice at the bottom of the link tree, you'll see this thing called Workstation Setup, and basically, this says Data Science Workstation Setup Guide. We covered everything that we... like, this guide is basically like a written version of how you want to do everything here. And then I even go as far to here as like actually demonstrating with screenshots and everything how to do things on Windows too. So if you wanted to follow along with more of like a text-like guide on everything that we did today, granted, it is not 100% up to date, because I only update this thing like once every other year. I think the last time I updated it was about a year ago. The only thing I note here, I think I even put it on the guide here. What if I get stuck? I think I just use... Oh, wow. I forgot. Yeah, this is showing the age here, because I used to use Perplexity. Now I use ChatGPT. But like, if you get stuck, my recommendation is just ask ChatGPT for help. Yeah. So that's that for you. I'm glad I remembered that before we shut down today. All right, that covers everything for today. Hope you all have a good weekend. I will see you in the next one. Bye.